Monu tangaloa, ke hake pāhelangi ke hewe pū he larafunua. Koe o ka hae aho nei mai, ngā whakalawhali at ke te tolu hosi koa a whalataha mai ki longa he ato tolu leo taongo PMN Niue, koe mga nei, koe koe lauri ta tolu ke whakamawhiti tau whakaroanga he kamatanga ta tolu hakoa a mamnaki mai e taha eke pole he palamene he motu ta tolu mai he mtakau he ta Green Party ne kua a mamnaki ke whakatutala mo ta tolu he whawhinei ka osi e to whakatutala anga ha ta tolu to whalawhala te moinga e ta whakaroanga ta tolu ne toi ke rātai mo e PMN Niue. And a very warm good afternoon whakalawhalehat ke te tolu osi to everyone listening in to PMN Niue this afternoon. Always great to have your company. And obviously we are pressed for time at the moment because we have on the Zoom waiting for us is a son of South Auckland and a member of Parliament for the Green Party. Faann Efeso Collins is with us this afternoon. So in a very short moment we will be speaking to him. But we will kick off our show with our interview with Faann. So without further ado, I'd like to say whakalawhaleia tu kia koe Faann and welcome to the program.
And thanks for having me this afternoon. I know I had to reschedule part of your program this afternoon, Faann, so I appreciate the opportunity to join you.
Faann, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program. And going back to our interview some time ago, we did say that if you were successful in your bid for Parliament, that we would have a follow-up interview with you, and you've kept your word, and very grateful to have you on the program with us this afternoon. But before we go, just give us a brief intro about yourself and your family. I know you're very famous here in South Auckland. But just for the benefit of the rest of our Niue listeners throughout the country, it'd be good if they could just get an insight about yourself. Thank you.
Oh, whakawelahi. Thanks, Faann. Yeah, so I've been a member of Parliament now for just over 4 months. We were elected in the last election in October. Grew up in Otara, the mighty 274 in South Auckland, and the youngest of 6 children. And I've been fortunate over the years. I've always gone to church with lots of Niueans, and so there's certain kind of food that I like to steal whenever we have a Niuean do, especially the te kihi. I love the way the Niue people cook the kalu. But it's a real honor to be here in Parliament, and people will know that, or some people will know that I was on Auckland Council for a few terms and was unsuccessful in the mayoral bid. And I remember our talk during that campaign as well, Faann. I think this is a really good opportunity for our people to have a strong voice in Parliament. We're in the opposition benches, and so I've come in as part of the opposition crew. And I think it's important that we continue to advocate strongly for what our communities are asking us for. So I hope that gives people a little bit of a background. I was fortunate last week, gave my maiden speech, and now we're really into the groove now, making sure we stand up strong for our people.
And I enjoyed listening to your maiden speech as well, Faann, and you know, the Samoan hymns that rang out through the Parliament. So awesome, you know, culturally it was so awesome to acknowledge your tupumayanga, you know, which in Niue is where you come from. And it was awesome. So Vika Inga and I are here this afternoon, and I know that you know Vika very well, and it's good to have him here as well with us. So I know you've just spoken about what I was going to ask you in my second question about contesting the Auckland mayoral seat, which was eventually won by, you know, the current mayor Wayne Brown, with a good margin. Do you think, though, I mean, similar with the local government elections as well as the central government elections, do you think that perhaps things would have been different if more of our people voted at those times as well, because I know we had quite a lot of people registering to vote, but when the actual days come along to vote, not that many actually go and vote.
Yeah, and when you look at the analysis, what we've seen consistently in the patterns of different elections is that predominantly Māori, Pasifika, people in lower socioeconomic backgrounds, they're the ones who tend not to vote. So we saw it in the mayoral election, and then we saw it again in the general election. And you could probably say, on average, in areas like Manukau, where Pemio Otahu is, and it's good to see the vicar as well. I actually live behind the vicar's church, but the vicar will probably be wondering why I haven't been to church in a while. So I feel terrible this afternoon. But when you look at even Mangere, Manurewa, those are areas with high Pasifika populations. If you go out to Mana, where Porirua is, and the Hutt, Lower Hutt, those areas, Taita, Pomare, Wainui, a lot of those areas we saw a major decline in the number of people who were voting. And that's pretty much our people. I think one of the big things that we've got to understand is we have a lot of power when it comes to voting. And I understand that for many of our community, people feel disenfranchised by the system. Often people will be thinking, oh, I'm really busy. I've got to work. I've got kids to get to school.
Yeah.
I've got to make sure there's enough food on the table. So those are the issues, but it's recognizing that we can impact the policy settings of those issues by voting. And there were, at least in all of those electorates that I named, there were at least 10,000 votes decline, which means 10,000 people didn't vote from the last election. And that really does send some, I don't know, some warning signals to all of us that we've got to do more to encourage our people to vote. The data tells us that when you vote, and once you've voted once, the habit can start. And we've got to encourage our young people in particular to vote, because then we get habits. And I know, for Samoans, we're used to the voting back home in Samoa. I'm not sure what it's like in Niue, but once we get people into the habit of voting, then we'll see people voting. And yeah, I think that the results could have been different. And I can look back now, it's almost been 18 months. I think if our people had have voted, it may have been a very different outcome. But the fact is, you run a campaign, you know the kind of groups that are going to vote, and you've got to accept that that's what the population has voted for, and that's the decision that they've made. But we've also got to understand that we could really drive change if our people are voting.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in Niue, everyone votes. Everyone votes, and that's the difference, I guess. But here, there are so many different dynamics that impact our people in terms of voting, and sometimes we in our society we say, if you don't complain because you didn't, if you didn't vote, then don't complain. That's the bottom line. So you are absolutely right in terms of our people making an impact when they do vote. So tell me, what influenced you in the end, your decision to run in the last elections under the Green Party banner, and what were some of the key challenges that you had to overcome to get you into Parliament? And as it turned out, I think you were the only successful Pacifica candidate in the last elections that made it. So awesome, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Look, I just want to say thank you to the community, like everyone, whether they were out South Auckland, because I did a lot of campaigning in South Auckland. People were really supportive. And even as people were saying, commiserations for the mayoral outcome. But I knew that people really wanted to see our style of leadership, a leadership style that's considerate, that waits, that's humble, I hope. And a style where we bring something very different, something unique to the table. And so, I went through the mayoral campaign. That was a really big year. And then at the end of that year, I was in discussions. People may remember that I was endorsed by the Labour Party and the Green Party when I stood for the mayoralty. And when we had discussions towards the end of 2022, the Green Party extended an invitation to be part of their team going into the general election. And so I thought, yeah, this is a wonderful opportunity. I needed a bit of time just to reflect on whether this was something I wanted to do. And yeah, I guess the ideal of public service means that we want to give ourselves to our community. My dad used to joke that I had a big mouth. And so I think it was important for me to use that one talent that I had to advocate for the community. And so when the Greens opened the door, I said, yeah, I'd love to be part of this. And I looked at their policy platform. I think that was probably the key thing, was when it came to the repeal of the Western Samoa Act that's coming before Parliament next week. Some of our listeners will know Te Ano Tuiono. Te Ano, that's his bill. He's part of the Green Party. And I wanted to do that. That's a racist piece of legislation that's been on the New Zealand legislature for a long time.
Mm.
And we've got to end that. And when you look at our policies in the party, I thought, yeah, that's what I really want. Even the talk of a wealth tax or income guarantee that we were talking about. And our encouragement to people was, look, if we tax at the higher end, we've got more money to spread so that we can build more hospitals, more schools, get the things that we really need. Because I think that's what our expectations are as a community. So those were the things that really drew me into the Green Party. Unfortunately, there was no room in Labour, but that's cool because we've worked together for so long. We were last in government alongside the Labour Party. So in a way, we're just an extension. Hey, we're just a big extended
Absolutely.
family. And
Absolutely.
so no, there was no ill feeling. It was just a thanks, guys. I really appreciate your support. But they've got their run on 15, if we use the rugby analogy, and I had to go find another 15. It was interestingly enough, it was 15 members that got in from the Green Party too. So that's what got me involved in the Green Party. But for me, the ultimate is it doesn't matter what the vehicle is. And I want to speak clearly to our listeners, whatever the vehicle is, whatever the opportunities are that we've got, all of us have the opportunity to influence. And just on that, if we go back over the election period just gone, even over the mayoral campaign, it was organisations like PMN where you are now. Those organizations, yeah, you're neutral, but your job is to bring out the information so that our people are informed. They know that these are decisions that rest with them. And so well done to all of you in there because you were the ones, I don't speak Niuean, but you're the ones communicating in Niuean so that our communities understand. So that's another big part of what we've got to understand, that as long as we're connecting with our community, all of us come with a desire to serve. I've seen it when you're hanging around, you've got your camera in one hand, you're interviewing, you're holding the mic. I thought, look at our people doing amazing things because we
Mm.
want our young people to be informed. And that's the kind of service that all of us bring to the table. And I think we can all benefit as New Zealand when we've got that kind of diverse inclusion in our society.
Mm. You're absolutely right, Faann. And we at PMN we do our best to remain neutral and yet at the same time keep our communities well informed
Yeah.
about what's going on, on the social front, the political front, and all the other areas. So I know you've talked about some of the things that you want to do, but tell us about, in particular, some of your own priorities that you would like to achieve during your term, and that of the Green Party as well for our Pacifica people.
Yeah, I've recently picked up the education portfolio
Mm.
for the Green Party, and so I'd really love to see our young people doing a whole lot better at school. I want to encourage our young people to be at school, to be present. If you look at learner completion rates in tertiary, the average completion rate for all of New Zealand is around 67%. For Pacific, the completion rate of degree level courses is only 40%. And
Mm.
that's not good enough. And I know, we're not dumb. Hey, education is my background, youth development. I know that our young people are full of potential, but we've got some big challenges. And our job is as a community, how do we support one another so that our young people are getting to school, they're passing the exams, they're completing assessments, so that they can go on. And as I tell my daughters, hey, you're my Kiwi saver. You're the one that's going to be looking after me when I'm old, and doing all those kinds of things. So I'm really I'm really encouraging our people to do well in education. Got to make sure that we're supporting all of our families so that when it comes to anything that they're doing, whether it's immigration, how we can support them. Those are some of the key areas that we need to be working on. So I'm excited about what we've got, what's in front of us. But I think in every aspect, our data is not pretty. And you and I have been talking about this even before I was in politics. You've been hosting this show for a long time, and you know that the data has shifted very little. So rather than us talk, in platitudes, what we've got to do is say, is demand of our leaders, this is what we ask of you. If we're going to see our young people doing better, if we're going to see our families have enough coming into the house so that they can all do really well and prosper, then we need to demand of our community leaders and our political leaders to do more. So, those are just some of the areas that
Mm,
I've
mm,
been thinking a lot about. I've touched on the Western Samoa Act and repealing that. I think there's also an opportunity for us to look at how we grow our movement around climate change too. We've got the Pacific Climate Change Warriors who are doing a lot of work, but when you just look out into the Pacific, those rising sea levels, they're going to impact us first. And so things that will help us in New Zealand is, why not make public transport free? Why not make it so that we've built enough houses to house everyone on the social housing waiting list? There are 25,000 people on that list, many of whom are Pasifika.
mm.
And we know that from the Salvation Army recent report that, so many of our people are struggling when it comes to good housing. So we've got to demand more, we've got to build faster, and that way we'll be able to house our community. So I think those are ongoing things. They're not new things, unfortunately. Those are things that we've been struggling with for many years, and so we just got to keep the pressure on to get those things.
Well, I think it's great that you are in the House to champion some of these issues that have been plaguing our people for so long. And having another voice in Parliament can only be good for us, our Pacific people. I was going to mention, what's going on within Parliament in terms of the ACT Party's treaty principle bill and the government's stance on the use of te reo within government departments, and not forgetting the dawn raid apology, which was supposed to have been what it was, but even today we're still hearing about a few dawn raids happening.
Yeah.
So we hope that those things are going to be changed. Well, what are your thoughts anyway about what's happening at the moment within the House?
Yeah, I think that the position that we take as a Green Party is we are Te Tiriti-based party. We are a
Mm,
party that recognises Te Tiriti o Waitangi as the foundation document for our nation. And when we hold the foundational documents right and in their respectful place, then we're going to do really well. I think there's a whole lot of scaremongering that's going on. It's really interesting, because people are saying, oh, we all need to start talking about what the constitutional arrangements are, and we want to
mm,
have this plebiscite or a referendum on what the principles of the treaty are. And what we've got to remember is the treaty was a document that was signed between Maori and the Crown. It wasn't everyone get involved and have your say.
mm,
What it is you've got Maori, and so they should be representing themselves when it comes to this treaty.
mm,
This is about how we honor the treaty. And the Crown comes back. Rather than go out and consult the whole world, what we should be saying is these two parties need to sit down and they talk it through. We've been talking about this for a long time, and I think there's some consistency when it comes from the Maori side, and there's been inconsistency when it's come from the Crown. And so there is a part of me that's anxious about the idea of a referendum. I'm also wondering why the National Party, who said they're only going to support it to the first reading and then they're not going to support it beyond that. It really is wasting the time of Parliament. This is
mm,
not going to get through Parliament. It's got absolutely no teeth as a result of that. You've got a coalition government that is not unified on this point, but they're deciding they're going to run it anyway. And that's what seems completely futile about this attempt. I
mm,
think the other thing when it comes, I think your question around the apology is, I think all of us were really moved by the apology that was made a few years ago in relation to the dawn raids of the 1970s. But I said right at the beginning is I welcome the apology because we always have to acknowledge that there's been a
mm,
wrong. But what we also needed to do was make sure there was good, clear action to go with it. The fact that it's our party that is trying to repeal the Western Samoa Act, and just for those people who don't know what that is, the Western Samoa Act was an act that was introduced by the Muldoon government when one of our people went to the Privy Council in Britain and said, during the time that Samoa was under British administration, that should have made us automatically British, therefore New Zealand citizens. And the Privy Council said, yes, you are right. And then the national government under Muldoon introduced the Western Samoa Act that says, no, you're not. We're not going to acknowledge what the Privy Council has said. You are not citizens. And so we want to repeal that because that's one of the racist pieces of legislation. That should have been repealed as part of the apology to at least the Samoan people who were affected by the Dawn raids. And I think that's the kind of stuff we've got to be talking about. It's one thing to say sorry. It's another thing to have actions that show that you're sorry. This isn't about just being sorry. This is about being better. And better means we're talking in our schools about what happened. We're recognizing the things that happened to our people during a time, a racist time in New Zealand's history, where we've got to turn around. Now, young people, it's not hard to see the struggles of our young people who don't quite understand. Everyone's got this romantic idea and say, oh, this is my village, I'm from Alofi, or I'm from Satupaitea in Samoa, wherever. But they've got no connection. Their earliest connection is to their high school. I go to Mangere College. And look at what's happening in our high schools at the moment, because we're beating up our own people. The whole Marcelin and Mangere College situation. And that is because over time we've stopped talking about what it means to be part of Te Moana Nui a Kiwa. We are all brothers and sisters together. And that's what we should be doing. We should be encouraging this in the curriculum. And that's what the change needed to look like. And I know a little bit of money was made available after the apology, but we've got to change the curriculum. We've got to shift the way we treat our RSE workers. We're good at bringing them over, then we pay them rubbish. We don't house them very well, and then we treat them poorly and they go back and they've been able to send very little home back to the islands anyway. So there are some big things we've got to do to change. We can't just perform. And we've got to be really careful that the apology wasn't just performative apologizing. The apology needs to come with action. And now we as a party are trying to make that action happen now.
Faann, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. And we're running a bit tight on time. And I know that you need to get back to Parliament for your next session. But it's been great talking to you. And thank you for sharing some thoughts. Your thoughts with us in terms of what you are looking to do or to achieve in conjunction with the Green Party during your time there. And we wish you very well with your future endeavours in Parliament. Do you have any final thoughts that you would want to share with us?
Or just a quick thank you once again to PMN, to yourselves who are there in the studio for the work you continue to do. It's not about just getting politicians into the show, but it's talking to our communities. That work is so important. And I know you're not all millionaires, because if we were millionaires, Faann, I'm sure you'd be shouting me a trip over to Niue now, but that's not the case. But I just wanted to say thank you for keeping our people informed and recognising the very key role that you and the media play. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. We're celebrating 50 years South Government this year, Puli Whakamotu. So if you can make it to Niue, I look forward to seeing you there. But Munuina, and all the best for your work in Parliament, and thank you again for joining us. Munuina, whawhitai tele lava, ma whakauelahi ma whanana. Tofeleweia. Munuina e whiawhi.
Amen.
Okay.